Well, hey fans, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Spoilers, and today we're talking spoilers for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, like many people, for most of my life, I pronounced it Shang-Chi, but Kevin Feige came out and told us that it was Shang-Chi, and if that's what he says, that's what we're going with. I really enjoyed this film. I enjoyed the martial arts aspect. I enjoyed that it was something new that we hadn't seen before. Of course, they were able to retcon some of what happened in Spider-Man 3, which that's what I like about Kevin Feige. When the fans don't like something, he takes his time in getting back around to it, and he's not super reactionary. He's like, okay, I'll make a change eventually, but let me get to it. He doesn't just rehaul his entire storyline. And like I said before, I enjoyed it. I believe I gave it an 8 out of 10 over on the blog. But to get into the storyline, something that they changed from the comics is what the Ten Rings actually are. In this film, there's some kind of ancient wrist bracelets. I don't know the exact name for the fighting weapon that they are, but and they give you like the power to you can control the rings mentally, you can project them, you can create energy fields, and they keep you really young and they make you stronger than the average human. Whereas in the comics, they were like rings that go on your fingers, and each had like a special power, like a freeze ray or a blackout ray or a white light ray or wind ray, something like that. So that was an interesting change, and I wonder if, as we go forward in the MCU, Phase 4 into Phase 5 and 6 and so on, if Shang-Chi will unlock these powers now that he has the rings, because at the end of the film he defeats his father and gets the rings, and more on that later. But the thing, like I said, I really enjoyed the fighting. The combat was great. Shang-Chi's relationship with Katy was a good platonic friendship. They didn't force them together and make them fall in love at the end. They're friends at the beginning, they're friends at the end. I don't want them to ever fall in love throughout the rest of the MCU. I just want them to remain friends. It's great. We don't get enough of that in many films. The connections to the MCU, while minor, were good. So Wong is in the film, and Wong is fighting at Shang-Chi's sister's like underground fighting ring thing, and he's fighting Abomination. Now this is the first time we have seen Abomination since the Incredible Hulk, and his design is a little bit different, and I hope eventually they explain why that is, and it might just be he's just different and they'll just ignore it, but I hope they do explain why he is a little different. We will next see him in She-Hulk, I believe. But at the end of their fight, Wong wins, and you find out that they're actually working together. They just staged this fight for the money. And we don't get to hear Abomination really say anything, but they leave through a portal together, and it looks like there's some kind of containment unit behind him. So I wonder if, in all his years locked up, if Abomination is not necessarily a bad guy anymore. He's learned the error of his ways, and he's doing whatever he can to get back to a normal life. So that would be interesting to see. But also in this tournament, which the tournament is in Macau, and leading up to this film, everybody was like, "Oh, the tournament's going to be in what's the name of that island?" It was in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Let me check. One moment. Found it. The name of the island is Madripoor. So it would have made more sense if her underground fighting ring was in Madripoor. It would have connected to the Disney Plus shows and other things that they were doing. But no, it's in Macau. And in this tournament, there are some smaller fights. And in those smaller fights, you see a Black Widow. And of course, it's an Asian Black Widow, which is great. But you see her fighting, I believe it's an extremist soldier. And we, once again, another connection to Iron Man 3. We thought they all died, but it turns out there's at least one left, and he's fighting in underground tournaments. So that's great. And speaking of this tournament, this leads me to an early leak of the film, which turned out to not be true, which I thought would have been better, is that the Mandarin is staging a tournament whereas the winner will get the 10 rings, and the winner of the tournament gets to fight him for the 10 rings. And originally it was supposed to be his son, Shang-Chi, is going to enter the tournament. Of course, he knows his son's going to win, and this was all just a ruse to get his son back at his side, because the son's not going to be able to defeat him. But in this tournament, we were supposed to see Marvel's first, or the MCU's first mutant. We were supposed to see a vampire. We were supposed to see, like, Iron Fist. We were supposed to see Carl Mordo. Like, all these people were supposed to cameo in this tournament to sow seeds for what is going on in the rest of the MCU. But we didn't get that. And while I like the film, I think that would have actually made a better plot. But yeah, so in the film, back to he enters the fighting tournament, sees his sister again, his dad comes for him. They go back to his dad's compound. That is where they meet Trevor Slattery. He's still alive. He's like the Mandarin's jester now. They go to the like mystical dimension where his mom is from, and of course get brand new superhero like outfits, and they see a dragon, all this jazz. Now, the thing about that village, and I forget the name of the dimension, but they mentioned there are more cities in that dimension. And for me, I'm like, so is this their first hint at Kunlun, potentially bringing the Iron Fist over to the MCU? One of these other cities is Kunlun, and Shang-Chi will eventually meet the Iron Fist, because in the comics they meet all the time. They're both kung fu masters. So it would be great if in Shang-Chi 2 we got to see the immortal Iron Fist. So that would be great. But in this dimension, and this for me at the end, this is where the film goes off the rails. And I don't mean off the rails as in terrible, but I wouldn't have ended it like this. There's this giant soul-sucking demon that is like sending messages to his dad, and his dad thinks it's their dead mom and he's going to free her soul or whatever. But he saw her body, he saw her die. So he's totally stupid to believe that she's trapped there or that they took her, because he saw what happened to her. And another thing about that, when they get to this dimension, they're like, get back in your car and go home. And I'm like, how do they know what cars are? But that's neither here nor there. But so he goes, frees the soul-sucking monster. Of course, the monster sucks his soul and he dies, and he gives Shang-Chi the 10 rings. Now, his dad should have been the final villain of the film. It should have been they're protecting the village from the 10 rings. Shang-Chi has to fight his dad and kill him because his dad won't stop. And he defeats his father. Then they have like the Vader Anakin moment where he's like, there was always good in you, I know I'm sorry, and gives him the 10 rings then and dies. That would have made for a way better ending. It would have been a 10 out of 10. Just this martial arts fight between father and son, as opposed to, oh, here comes a giant monster. So that would have been great. But back to Shang-Chi. At the end of the movie, he gets the 10 rings, which is great, because before he was just the world's best martial artist, so to speak. That doesn't make him any better than Hawkeye or Black Widow, really, in terms of like if there's another alien invasion or zombies or wizards, whatever. But he gets these 10 rings, so he gets the strength boost, and he gets to, throw them around and make solid weapons and use energy if he wants. But now that he has these, is he going to stop aging? Because his dad had them for like 2,000 years. Didn't really age until he took them off while he was raising the kids. But now that Shang-Chi has them, is he wearing them all the time? Does he only wear them when he needs to? We'll find out. Him and Katy go with Wong at the end, and they're in the post-credit scene. They are looking at his rings, and apparently once he wore them, a beacon inside went off and is sending a message to somebody. Nobody knows who. So we're waiting to see what that means. But you got Wong there, you got Bruce Banner there, and Carol Danvers. And the funny thing is that Bruce Banner is now in his human form again, so hopefully there's more connection to that. Carol just has an emergency and has to leave, and then at the end of that, Katy and Shang-Chi and Wong go out for drinking and karaoke, so that was fun. But in the final post-credit scene, we get Shang-Chi's sister, and she has now taken over the Ten Rings since her father is dead. And basically, what it's made to look like, before you find out that her dad really didn't let women join the organization as combatants, but now that she's taken over, she has men and women, uh, and she's pretty much integrated it into her own underground organization. And it says they will return. So I think moving forward, the Ten Rings is going to be this new major, not really threat, but kind of gray area where, I mean, I don't really know. We'll see. She doesn't seem like a villain. It would have been great if they set her up as a villain. She has every right to be, considering that her brother left her when she was like 7 years old. Um, but that is it for me, guys. Remember, you can view this spoiler review on YouTube and the blog flipfrogllc.com/flixfrog. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. And please, pretty please, everybody, hey, come here, listen. Make sure that you subscribe. Yes, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, everything. Make sure you like, comment, and share. The next Let's Talk Spoilers I will be doing is The Suicide Squad, sequel to Suicide Squad. And once I'm done with that, I'll probably get back onto the Marvel stuff. But until next time, I'll be seeing you.